Congressman Allen West, thanks so much for joining us.
It is always a pleasure to be with you, Kathleen, and Newsmax.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
President Obama is changing the birth control mandate to accommodate religious employers opposed to the rule requiring them to cover birth control. Why do you think that the president backed down?
Well, I think the president backed down because it became an election issue. First of all, it's not about contraception. It's about First Amendment right. It's about the freedom of religion and the expression thereof, as the Constitution, First Amendment states. When you look at the fact that people came to this country, the Pilgrims, because they wanted to escape a religious persecution in Europe, we don't need to have a president that, based upon his own or some other's ideological agenda, trying to mandate something that goes contrary to the doctrines and principles that certain people have in their religious practices and beliefs. So I don't think this is sincere. I think that this is a stopgap measure to try to appease and accommodate. But you have to ask yourself first and foremost, why would you even do it?
You are speaking here at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. What is your message to the party base?
Well, I think the most important thing that we have to do, and I'm really honored, this is my third straight year of doing this, you've got to talk about the fundamental difference. And I think that that is where I believe the presidential candidates are missing out. They're not drawing the complete contrast between the current vision that President Obama and others have for this country as opposed to what they should have. And I think that when we clearly state that and articulate it, you get Americans to start to think about really what they want this country to be.
So Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich are speaking here. What is it exactly that the attendees, the conservatives, want to hear from each of these guys?
I think they want to see their vision. I think they, not so much sit down and talk about what executive orders you're going to do. They want to see some passion. They want to see what do you believe makes America unique and exceptional. They want to see something like not Ronald Reagan himself, but that type of message that he had back when he was talking about his morning in America. They want to see someone that can say, are you really better off than you were 3-4 years ago? But this is how we can get better. This is how we can get this ship of state back in the right direction and set course for a new era and a new day for this country.
We'd like to get your thoughts real quickly on each of the GOP presidential candidates, beginning with Mitt Romney. He won your state.
Mm-hmm. It's not my state. It's our state. I mean,
well, your home state of Florida.
Yeah, he won the home state of Florida, and I think that when you can take $17 million, you can drop it on someone's head, you're going to be pretty successful, and I think that's what we saw. Of course, Florida is a fourth largest state in the union. It's a very diverse state, and so I think that a lot of people paid attention to what happened there. I don't know if that, we already saw that Rick Santorum turned that momentum around in Colorado, Minnesota, and Missouri. So there's still some bit of an angst out there to see if, Governor Romney can make that connection all across the board and continue to have successes. I mean, you don't do well in Iowa. I mean, Santorum, we found out, won there. He wins in New Hampshire. He does not win in South Carolina. He wins in Florida, then he has 3 straight setbacks. So this thing is still a very fluid situation.
What's your take on Rick Santorum?
I think Rick Santorum is, somewhat appealing as that quote-unquote conservative alternative. Can he extend that past just the social conservative issues, the religious base, to really, talk about fiscal conservatism? And he has a good national security message. So now is a matter of, the spotlight's on you. Can you endure that spotlight?
And what about Newt Gingrich?
He has to continue to try to fight, what is a bit of an uphill battle, because right now, DC Insider, not DC Insider, we all knew that he had baggage going in here. Can he survive? As I said early on, can he fight with a 200-pound rucksack on his back? Some people can, some people can't. So I think the real delineator is going to be Super Tuesday in March to see, where this turns next.
And what about Ron Paul?
It's kind of interesting he's not here for CPAC because this has always been kind of his stronghold. We'll see what happens with the straw poll. But, fiscal policy, monetary policy, he and I see eye to eye on. But when it comes to national security and foreign policy, he and I need to talk.
Recent polls favor President Obama over Mitt Romney, who is leading the pack amongst the Republicans. Are you concerned about this?
No, I'm not. Because my mom had a great saying. She said, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. So we don't know where this thing may go. Look, when you start to look at the situation, now all of a sudden people starting to pay attention to national security and foreign policy because the whole episode in Syria is dominating the news. We got 19 Americans that are being detained in Egypt. This is shades of what happened in Iran, where we didn't support the Shah. You get the Ayatollahs, you get radical Islamic terrorism, a resurgence thereof. Look at what's happening in Egypt. Hosni Mubarak, we asked him to be deposed. Now the Muslim Brotherhood has about, a 75 to 78% control of the parliament, and we got 19 Americans that are not being allowed to leave that country. So, when you talk about polls, things can change very quickly because this is a very volatile situation we're in.
There's been a difference of opinion on whether support among black voters for President Obama has increased or decreased. How pivotal do you think that this is to the election?
I think it's very pivotal. As a matter of fact, last fall, August, September, there was a poll that came out, I believe it was Washington Post poll, that said the strongly approved number in the black community, which was at a high point of about 83 to 85% for the president, had dropped down to 58%. Look, you're seeing an incredible high unemployment rate in the black community. I think the high point, it almost hit 17%. And it is definitely, not consistent with the lowering the national average. And I think there are a lot of people that are small business owners in the black community. There are a lot of people such as myself. That we're not looking for government intrusion into our lives. We're looking for a government to set the conditions for us to be successful in our lives. So that's why we had a conservative black forum about 2.5 weeks ago. Very well attended. C-SPAN covered it for 2 hours because 33% of the black community self-identifies as conservatives. 90-some-odd% still vote, straight down Democrat. Now, all of a sudden, if in this election cycle, that drops from 95% to 85%, that's a big change for the Democrat Party.
So you see potentially many black or African American voters who voted for President Obama in 2008 turning away from him in 2012?
I think that could happen as long as you show a viable alternative, as long as you show the contrast, as long as you show the difference between the two visions for this country. Look, I think we all remember back in 2008, the young lady at the Bank Atlantic Center that said, if I vote for him, I'm not going to have to put gas in my car, I'm not going to have to pay my mortgage. So there are people out there that thought that the manna would fall from heaven, and if they don't get that, they may not come back out.
President Obama recently stated that he thinks he deserves a second term. What is your take on that statement?
Yeah, well, that would be just like if I showed up as a first lieutenant to my promotion board and said I deserve to be a captain. You earn the right to be president of the United States of America. It's a privilege, it's an honor. You don't deserve it. So I really take umbrage with the use of that word.
All right, you recently announced that you will run for re-election in a new district after redistricting efforts would have made you somewhat vulnerable in your current district.
No, not just somewhat vulnerable. I would have been evaporated, because for whatever reason, the Florida legislature, which is supermajority Republican, took this district, which is a D+1, to a D+6, which means that the district now is about 57% Democrat. And really, there were several maps that constituents supplied to them that would have been in concert within the legal guidelines of Amendment 6 as well as Voting Rights Act. Kept the district, very competitive, D+1, D+2 at the max, and they rejected it. So the new district, we had an opportunity. 24% of our current district folds over into CD18, which will now be North Palm Beach County, Martin County, and Stewart County. So I think that it was a very good decision. A lot of people supported it, and I even had a very strong Democrat out of Broward County said it was one of the wisest things he ever saw.
And speaking about the redistricting situation in another interview, you stated no one is going to lay a trap for you. Does the Republican establishment want you out, as some say, and if so, why?
Well, I think you got to find the Republican establishment and ask them. I think if you
What's your sense?
Well, for whatever reason, I can't understand it. Politics is a very nasty business, and sometimes you get the A2 Bruti sword in your back, and I think that this was one of those instances. But, as a very savvy person, I'm always looking out, to the left, to the right, and to the rear, because you have to also be consider those avenues as well. So I don't know why. the Florida legislature would do what they did, especially when you consider the fact we picked up 2 new districts, so that was not necessary. The sad thing is that we don't want to see Broward County not have any type of federal level Republican representation. But I think Adam Hasner, who has dropped out of Senate race to run over in the House side, he's going to do very well, and I think he can do very well in the districts the precincts that they drew in West Boca and also in West Broward County.
Congressman Allen West, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure.